How to avoid panic attacks during swim. First of all, acknowledge that feeling and actually find the root cause of that feeling. So first, acknowledge it is normal. It is normal, especially if you're new to swimming. It is normal. Panic attacks is not fun at all. It's not fun. It sucks. Okay. Panic attacks is different from having the nerves or feeling the nerves. Feeling the nerves is more of like, it's either you're excited or you're nervous, but panic attack is something that's super not cool, especially if you train hard for it. So if you do know that you're one of those who's actually having panic attacks, we need to address that way before the race, okay? And then the main reason why we want to evaluate the reason of panic, because each individual has a specific reason, and we need to make sure that we are specific to the solution. Okay, there are athletes that maybe what get them panic or start thinking or overthinking is like they touch a plant or some weeds in the water, or something like the dark, the murkiness, they don't like it, or the current. So it could be different things. Once we know what particular reason, then it's much better. It's much easier for us to actually solve it. But definitely this one, acknowledge the feeling. We need to actually acknowledge it. Definitely not be in denial, because if you're in denial, then it's hard to actually even solve it. You don't even know that you have a problem, right? Practice swimming in race conditions. Swimming in the pool will not be enough. And if you don't have an access to an open water, will definitely simulate what could happen the best that you can in the race. Okay. If your race is in open water, you want to make sure and then really study, is it in the ocean, or is it in the lake, or is it in the river, is it in the pool? So those definitely matters, because as much as possible you want to practice swimming in those race conditions. So for example, swimming in the salt water is different from swimming in the lake. Honestly, to me, it doesn't really matter. I know there's more current in the ocean. In the lake, there could be more current if there's boat or if there's wind. It could be actually, just as hard as in ocean, right? But you want to make sure that you're actually prepared for it and you're practicing your swimming in that type of open water. Intensity of swimming, in most cases, in the pool, it's more secured. It's more controlled environment, right? Swimming at low intensity heart rate will not help, especially in a start of the swimming, wherein like 100%, you're gonna have a high heart rate, and you should be okay with that. How can you be okay with that? Again, going back to practicing swimming. If you do know that you're always like 70% of your perceived effort or your max heart rate, you're not even you're very relaxed, then that's a problem, because most likely you're gonna have a hard time in swim start, okay? Other people underestimate the swim start. That's something that, that needs preparation. Temperature of the water, this one is also important, because any external factors does affect the temperature of the water being cold, okay, or even the elevation. When it's at high elevation, it's harder to breathe, and when it's harder to breathe, the blood actually transfers oxygen to our brain much lower, okay? So, for example, when I swam, actually it's a combination of being very cold and at high elevation. Instead of me being able to actually breathe bilateral or like on the third stroke, I was actually breathing every stroke on only one side. It's because that elevation and in the cold water, it affected me. And because how you're feeling, how confident you are, it will affect you mentally. Okay, so these are the factors that we need to consider. So make sure that you study the swimming portion. You also want to make sure to check out whether it's wetsuit or no wetsuit. If it's no wetsuit, then you do need to make sure that you train. Okay, especially if it's somewhere where it's hot or your race is in summer, then that's something that you want to consider. Because, yeah, the buoyancy will also affect, and some people are not so confident. Use the gears that you'll use in the race, okay? Because that, again, that will affect. This one is deep water. So start position. So practice swimming in race condition. Start position, deep water or from shore, or consider the current, okay? A cold water acclimatization. So make sure that you actually practice if you're in cold water, or let's just say, you know, you go somewhere where it's humid and hot, then most likely you're not gonna wear a wetsuit, then you have to acclimate there too, okay? You have to build your confidence, because if you're confident, this one is less likely that you're gonna have the panic attack if you're confident, okay? So it matters big time. Those people who are not training enough, they already know in their head, even before they actually even start the swimming, oh shit, I did not train. So that affects the confidence. And then, so some people, they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to a race. I don't think I'm deserved to actually finish it because I didn't train. There's a lot of self-talk that's happening. So before you even go to the race, you know, you got to do the work to make sure that you actually doing your training. Visualization to rehearse what you'll do in stressful situations. So let's say when you get kicked, when your goggles leaking, or when you have panic attacks, what you're gonna do. One of the guys, Joe, he would actually panic, right? And so even swimming in the pool. So I've had him to actually be doing like, okay, if you panic, that's gonna be okay. I need you to act on it during that training. Use it, you know? Every time you actually experience something that's new or like that scares you during training, I think, to me, it sucks, but it's an opportunity for you to actually face that particular problem. I always tell my athletes, like, great, I'm glad you experienced that. And you don't experience that in the race, because at least if you experience that during training, then you have time to solve it. So during training, you know, what he would do, whenever he panics, he'd do a backstroke and then just get back to it, you know. Basically, beside visualization, he was actually exercising, doing it. For example, goggles leaking. Let's just say, you know, worst case scenario, your goggles broke, right? And you know, when I did my 5 Ironman in 5 consecutive days, my goggle broke the first day, and I only had 500 yards. Unfortunately, at that time, I did not practice. What if my goggles broke? Okay, so I did not practice anything. So what I was actually swimming without goggles. But other people, it causes panic, and you know, that's something that I suggest that you also think. You know, what other stressful situation that could happen, right? Practice sighting. Practice sighting is important. It's related to building confidence. When you know where you're going, you know, and you're not being kicked. I mean, expect when you're swimming, there's a lot of people around you. If you know where you're going and you know how to sight, your confidence is up. Okay, study the course. So study the course in a way that, okay, where are the buoys? Is it on my left or on the right? How many buoys? That would actually help you in terms of mental, okay? Because like, let's say you know that there's like 4 big yellow buoys. So whenever you actually pass one buoy, you're like, 1 down, 3 more to go, right? That becomes your motivation, each one. Or like, because the things that, like, for example, if you're swimming like 2.4 miles, or let's say Claudia is gonna swim 6 miles, you know, actually for those kind, you don't even see the buoy. So, but at least you wanna see, you know, you wanna know how many buoys, right? So at least you have something to target. Sometimes it's too long. Like similar to like when you're running a marathon, you know, 26.2 is too long. But hey, once you see like you're in mile 15 or mile 18 or mile 20, you know, like, oh, we're almost there, right? Focus on form. This is one of the things that I actually practice, especially when I'm out. I was very new in swimming. I would panic, but then instead of me thinking about my emotions, I would, okay, 1 stroke at a time. I just like really, my mantra, I forgot to put here, pick a mantra, use it during training, or especially when you're in open water, and pick a mantra and say that to yourself. So to me, I would say, exhale, okay, 1 stroke at a time, 1 stroke, okay, bubble, bubble, breathe. Okay, so stay objective, because once you start staying objective, you start thinking, you start being strategic. It's kind of like when you stay being strategic, you start like, how can I overtake this guy kicking me in front of me, splashing me water on my left, and I can't breathe properly. So when you stay objective, you forget to think of like, oh, I got kicked. Oh, it hurts, right? So stay objective, which will be much better. Practice swim in open water before the race. This one will help because of the familiarity. Okay, so when you're in a familiar environment and you practice it, then it will help you much better. And then I said mental fitness exercise. I did post this one last time. If you don't have it, I can send it to you. But basically, this one has a checklist, and I also had a video before. I'm just gonna review. My suggestion is actually do this one before a race. This is the main thing that actually I've done, especially when I have a big race. Okay, visualization. Okay, so I did talk about that. Visualize it. Problem solving. So think about like what could happen. It's not about being negative. It's actually being more solution finder. You want to have solutions immediately, like right in your head. So at least when the problems comes up, it's like automatic. When you're racing, it's really hard to think. You want to be automatic, right? Not only just physical, wherein you're like cycling, doing the same motion like physical, right? We want to exercise our mind just as how we would exercise our body. Okay, so you want automatic, so that's why we want to do this one. Face your fear. Like I said, brainstorm and discover, why are you feeling the panic attack? What's the root cause? Okay. Positive talk. This is the one that I said earlier, race mantra. What's your mantra? Especially when things go wrong. When things go wrong, what are you gonna say? Okay. Race strategy. Okay, so that's when you study the course, the swim course. I did add this one, collection of happy thoughts. Okay. I've done this one actually before each race that I'm scared. And I've done this one, I remember doing this one in the Ultraman, wherein it was very, very windy. And I think I only swam like 4 miles, and there's 2 miles more to go. And it's just like, even my kayaker was having a hard time. But before the race, I was writing, every time anything that happens before the race, I write it down. Especially if something that makes me laugh, I write it down. Because when things go wrong or when things go hard, I will pull that file folder of my happy thoughts, and I will remind myself of those. Other things that you can add is collection of happy thoughts and things that you are thankful of. So when I was actually having a hard time, I started thinking of the happy things that had happened to me during that week. And instead of me thinking about how hard the swim was, I was thinking about it, and guess what? I was actually smiling. And then like everything, I was just swimming and swimming. And it's much better, it's much easier. And then you're actually enjoying the race instead. Also, the other one that I want to add is remember all your achievement, not just during the race, but actually during training, okay? Because that builds your confidence. And like I said earlier here, building confidence is very important, okay? So for example, so you go look at your training peaks and you remind yourself, I did that. I went to the open water, okay? So for example, when Selma was actually having, doubts in terms of her Alaska man, wherein she was telling me, I didn't do this workout, I missed this workout, and I told her I had to remind her of all the things in swimming that she had done, and then that she can go through it. Mental fitness is very important. Meditation, breathing. One thing in terms of technique related, in terms of panic, you need to make sure that you're not holding your breath. When you're holding your breath, that's going to be really hard for you, and it's going to affect your heart rate physically. It's going to affect, it's going to affect your form. Okay, so definitely make sure that you're not holding your breath, and you're going to get more tired also. You'll be like gasping for air. Okay, have fun and gratitude. All right.
We covered a lot in that training video. I hope you learned so much and you found it useful, that you are super excited that you would actually implement what you've learned today. Not later, not in next few weeks, because you might forget it. I suggest that you actually implement it so you can see the result of what you've learned. So, if you're one of those athletes who like this kind of videos wherein I'm giving you advices, tips, strategies, step by step, very, very detailed, I invite you to visit feisty-fast-coaching.com/tribe. I put together something for you there. And that's it for today. I hope to see you on the next video. Bye.